growth. Before we get started, you might be, if this is your first webinar or first live training with us of 2025, this might look a little different for you. So Sadie, why don't you hit us with some truths
Yes.
on what Queen can expect in today's shindig?
Yes. So you're probably noticing we're on a different platform than usual. We're trying something out here this year on YouTube Live. It's just going to be a lot more accessible for people. The recording's already uploaded and everything like that, so you can immediately go back and watch. But to talk to us, it's a little bit different than how it was on our last platform. So if you have a YouTube account, then you are able to use the live chat. Feel free to use that. Remember, this is different than our last platform. If you use the live chat, everyone watching can see it. So just keep that in mind. But for people who don't necessarily want everything out there, or if you don't have a YouTube account, we'll have a banner down below right here. And you can text this number and I will be reading the questions throughout there. We'll keep you anonymous on here. If you want to, just let us know. But you have 2 ways to chat with us, whichever way's easiest. But yes, like we said, today, whenever we go live, it's already going to be recorded. So you'll be able to check this out afterwards. And then also at the very end, we'll have our phone number and we'll have our website and whatnot. If you want to follow up on anything that we're talking about, please feel free, or text us, live chat us, say, hey, I want to talk about this later. We're happy to follow up with you on that. But we're happy you guys are here and on the new platform with us.
I love it. I also noticed, like, why do I look so giant? It's because I'm scooted up further than you. I just noticed. I'm like, why do I not look? Anyways, if anybody's wondering who's that giant sitting next to Sadie, it's just forced perception. I love it. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's go ahead and dive into it. So, again, how do I? Okay, perfect. Again, talking today about structuring your agency. Again, creating the bone structure.
Should just be able to click.
Nope.
No?
Creating the bone structure behind your agency and what that looks like. Again, oftentimes when we see that growth is limited, it's because you didn't create your agency or didn't start the agency with the end in mind. That's kind of what it comes down to. So there's 3 areas that we're going to pay attention to today. That's going to be, who is your agency? And that's not just the name of your agency. That's not just who you are. I'm talking about who is your agency. Number 2, who's making the sales? Who's making the deals? Who's bringing in clients in the door? Number 3, who owns the business? Who's calling the shots? Who is managing the longevity of this? And again, on paper, all of this seems like very, well, duh, I'm running the business, I'm making the sale, I own the agency. So let's get into some clarifications on this. Number 1, who is your agency? And what I'm asking is, are you set up as an individual or are you set up as a corporation? Who owns the business? Where is the commissions being paid to? Who is the agent of record? Really important here. The way that you set yourself up from the beginning will dictate your growth pattern almost completely. It's like the least fun thing to talk about, but one of the most important things when it comes to starting your agency or running your good agency.
Yeah.
On the individual side, again, what does that mean? If you are set up as an individual, it means that your commissions and your contract with the carriers are tied to your social security number. That means I'll just use Sadie for example. Sadie, if you are an individual insurance agent, not a corporation or an LLC, that means that me as a carrier, I have agreed and agreed to the contract with you. That means that business has to stay with you. That business belongs to you. So what that means ultimately is that it's really difficult for you to buy or sell an agency.
Mm-hmm.
These insurance carriers do not care about like, well, I left this person. And again, we're going to go down there. Also, it happens in your will. The insurance carriers don't care about like, well, I willed my business to my spouse. I want them to receive the commissions if something happens to me. Or they don't care of like, hey, I had my lawyers look over this. Here's a bill of sale. I bought this person's insurance agency. Carriers don't care about that. Carriers said, I didn't sign an agreement. You didn't sign an agreement with this person who bought your business. That has nothing to do with us.
Right.
Our contract is with you, Sadie, as your individual, as your social security number.
And a lot of people set up whenever they're first starting, it's probably the easiest thing to do. And they just, set it up that way
Yes.
through an individual. Maybe this is like your first business, so like you're not used to it. But we see it all the time. Even people who have been doing business for a while, we see it all the time. And then there's some like major horror stories sometimes that happen. And
I have tons.
yeah, that come from, because you're not guaranteed tomorrow. And so sometimes whenever your social security number goes away, then those commissions go away and you thought that everything was set up right, and it's not. So
Well, a lot of people make the mistake because when we kind of get into the other side of this, which is the limited corporation or a limited liability, an LLC or a corporation, they think, well, that's just the liability that I have. Me as an insurance agent, no one's gonna sue. I'm not gonna have assets under this other than my commissions. I'm not gonna have no one's gonna get hurt. I don't have to worry about liability of myself that I'm
Yeah.
gonna get sued and my corporation does something. But they don't think about, or like tax implications, that's another thing. But they don't think about, again, the ownership of that business.
yeah.
If you, again, the carriers do not care about anything outside of you, agent, sign a contract that this identity, aka this social security number, was going to be the person managing these clients. That's who we gave the permissions to.
Mhm.
Nothing else matters. If you are, and so just going on side, like why the corporation, why we tend to look at the corporation stuff with this too. Again, commissions are tied to a tax ID number. Whether that is, there's kind of two types. There's an LLC or an S corp. The major differences between the two, it can get kind of like, again, I don't know lawyer terms. I don't know a lot of the accounting stuff. What I do know is an LLC, a limited liability corporation, is designed to help you with, again, avoiding liability of getting sued.
Mhm.
It's not, doesn't necessarily have a ton of tax implications. An S corp is more tax based. You still get the limited liability of an LLC, but S corps are going to basically make sure that you are not getting double taxed by the income, and then
Yeah.
also taxed by paying yourself that income.
Mm.
So it helps clean up the stuff on the tax end versus the liability stuff. So either is good, but either way, either one will create you a tax ID number that is receiving those commissions. And so when it goes to selling your book of business or buying a book of business, you're not buying a contract
Yeah.
with a carrier. You are buying that identity. You are
Right.
buying that entity, and the commissions will follow. And honestly, they're right of service. That's something we don't talk about a lot. There are cases where you can buy commissions or sell commissions, but you don't buy or sell the actual ownership of that block. So, for example, if you're buying or selling a Medicare Advantage plan, you can go ahead and say, I'm going to change my commissions to go to this new bank account because they bought my commissions. But if that agent is an individual and the commissions and everything is still tied to that agent and they don't recertify for the next year, those commissions, stop.
Yeah.
So it is so important when you're going to buy or selling or setting up your agency, you set yourself up to where you can one day retire or that you can grow quickly, which is acquisition.
Yes. Yeah. And that's a pretty big theme that you'll kind of cover here today is like beginning with the end in mind.
Yeah.
And you're starting out, you want to start out. And even if you've been in your business for a little bit and things aren't set up that way, you can always start today. But just from today on, continuing your business with the very end in mind,
Yeah.
because you also don't know when that's going to happen.
Yeah.
This next year, you might say, hey, I'm going to do this for the next however many years. And then this AEP rocks your world and you're like, I'm sick of this. I want to get out of this. I want to move on. You just never know like what's going to happen.
I've built an incredible agency. I've built this incredible brand. I can, just like anybody else, like any other entrepreneur, let me sell this and start the next thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If you want to be able to have this nest egg and something that's worth selling, you have to set up the right way. The best quote I've ever heard about this is like starting with the end in mind, or not even that, but it's talking about when is the best time to plant a tree? 200 years ago. When's the second best time to plant a tree? Today.
That's beautiful.
Like, it's just you have to start somewhere. So if you are somebody who 5 years under your belt, 10 years under your belt, and you're set up still as a social security number, not a tax ID, you can change that and we can start moving stuff over, but it is a process. So get us involved because it isn't as easy as, I do this now, I'm going to start writing there. You start getting two different, you get more tax forms, you get different, not 1099s. What am I trying to think? Yeah, 1099s. So just keeping that in mind. Let's move on to the next point. The second pillar of what makes the good bones of an insurance agency is going to be who makes the sale. Who is responsible for bringing in revenue to your agency? And at the end of the day, the way that you bring in revenue is by bringing on clients, writing insurance policies. So there's two ways to look at this. If you want to grow your agency by bringing on administrative staff versus wanting to grow your agency by bringing on downline agents. And let's kind of talk about when is it appropriate to do one. Because I work with a lot of people that I'll talk to them and say, I don't have time for my clients. I'm running out of time. I'm kind of capped out. It's time for downline. And understanding both of them equal growth. Both of them are growth. But the expectations of that growth and the path of the growth could not be more opposite.
Yes, and your role, like you'll see,
Yes.
your role will completely change, and sometimes that makes a big difference.
100%. Let's go into what does it look like if you hire admin as opposed to downline agents. Number one, when you are an admin, you want the primary income to come from your sales. If you I don't want to step out of a sales position. I know that if I can work harder, work longer, see more clients, do all that stuff, I like the idea of having, quite frankly, control over my income. And I want an administrative person to take on administrative burdens. Things, if it doesn't involve me writing a policy at the end of the day, somebody else can do that.
Right.
I'm going to focus solely on money-making activities and all the other stuff that is important. I don't want to downgrade, no, checking app status is important. Retention practices are important, things like that.
Right.
But when you're hiring an administrative staff, your idea is I'm going to be the source of income. You're going to facilitate anything that is not truly money-making activity. Now, when I say you want control, I mean you just want control of your income. You don't want to,
Right.
I'll say it like this, you don't want to, you have anxiety or you are uncomfortable to the point you're unwilling to do it, of allow the success of your agency to be reliable on somebody else.
Sure.
The revenue of your agency, right?
Yeah.
What I don't want that to get confused to is that the number one it's stopper of growth, there's a better way of saying it. The number one stopping of growth happening are control freaks. And so being a control freak isn't the same thing as hiring an admin, because you got to let your people do
Right.
their things. You cannot be involved in every step of the way.
Yeah.
You want control in the revenue.
Right.
That's the major difference there that
Yeah.
I would say.
For sure.
I would also put you need help systemizing your task schedules. Again, anything that is not money. If you are getting caught up in the busy and unable to be productive, it's time for administrative team.
Right.
That's typically what we see an agent talk about is between 300 to 500 clients. 300 being kind of the early stages of that, 500 being I can't do this. I cannot bring on, if you find yourself saying no to leads because you can't handle them, time to bring on an admin person.
Yeah. I think sometimes people jump immediately to, I have too much on my plate. I need to hire downline, which we'll talk about reasons why you would need to. But sometimes it's if you have, 300, 500 more clients than that, just knocking out the scheduling part, the talking to them on the phone, the answering the basic questions,
Yes.
stuff like that, you'll realize, oh, I don't need anybody else writing business. I can do that. I've just have been taking up so much of my time answering the phone and setting appointments and all that sorts of stuff. So sometimes it's an easier fix than what you think.
It is, truly. The last thing I'll say is one of the biggest mistakes we see whenever agents are trying to grow and they go the admin route is that the idea of someone else selling is just so enticing. You want that so bad. So they'll try to make an admin person into a sales role, and understanding that an administrative person and a salesperson are completely different skill sets,
Yes.
completely different personality types.
Mhm.
And so a lot of people who hire admin have the wrong expectations and they get so frustrated. I have a bonus, set in place for them for cold calling people. I have a bonus in place for them for cross-selling. And if if they take appointments from me, they get a bonus for that. A person who is gravitating towards administrative style work, supporting style of work, isn't necessarily the same personality that's going to be your shark of a salesperson.
Right.
I've seen it happen, but more times than not, when expectations aren't met, people are frustrated, even though the administrator is doing an administrative staff is doing an incredible job.
Yes. I think that a lot of people see they make the mistake of blending these two.
Yes.
I'm going to hire someone that's going to write sometimes, and then they're going to do the admin task. And sometimes that works out if you find the right person. But one, that's just going to cause burnout because that's using almost like two different sides of someone's
Completely,
brain
yeah.
every day. It's hard to schedule. It's hard to like manage your time
Mm-hmm.
that way. But also, if you have someone scheduling all there's just more room for error whenever
Yeah.
you're giving someone more of those tasks. And then
Yes.
you will end up doing more work than what you thought. The expectations won't be set right. But
Well,
yeah,
and if you have somebody that is really enjoying the sales side of it, what ends up happening more times than not is if I spent less time answering the phone, making copies, doing this, I could be making more sales.
sure.
And I see the income my boss is making, the agent, I see their income. I want a piece of that. I'm doing the sales anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you might come to the case where trying to click. I cannot click. That's where you come down to the case of maybe it's time for you to have a downline instead of an administrative staff. So if you're doing a downline, understand that your role is different. Your new role, if you get downlines versus an administrative, is to train and motivate your downline and to refocus on the retention of your agents. Agents get recruited all the time. Agents are constantly being called by organizations with offering higher contract levels, offering technology, offer things like that. So your role is to make sure your agency provides enough value that once you train them, once they start seeing success, that you're still providing something to them, mentorship, leadership, technology, leads, whatever it is. You're providing something of value that makes it worth them staying.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Your energy has to go into, of course, like retention. Someone has to focus on that. That's a whole job too, of just like growing your agency, but also retention of your actual downline.
Right.
If you bring someone on and you're like, well, I'm over here, I don't have time to like truly be who I need you to be in order to grow the business, it's going to go the wrong way for both of you.
Exactly.
And so you have to be willing to give up money from your personal sales
Yes.
to spend that time helping the other person grow. So it's a
Yeah.
really slow growth,
It's long-term growth.
long-term growth. Yeah.
We see a lot of people, what we used to see, and I haven't ran these numbers in years, so these are outdated numbers. It's probably higher than this now. But when somebody back in 2018, 2019, when somebody started saying, okay, I'm going to start bringing on agencies, on average, we saw about a $10,000 drop in their commissions and even more so in their premium because they were sacrificing their own personal sales to see the success of other ones to get them up and running or for to keep them on board.
Right.
But it's the law of numbers. So the more downline, because again, the way that you generate income when you have downline agents is that you may receive less money per sale, but you're hoping that people, again, it's if I can write 20 policies a week, then if I have two people under me and they write 20 policies a week, now I have 40 policies under my name.
Right.
It's the law of numbers. So understanding that and making sure that your business is scaled in that way. Downline agents, a lot of people is that the scalability of downlines are really difficult if you don't have the bones, you don't have the infrastructure, and you don't have the right expectations.
Right. Yeah.
If you think you're going to continue to sell, you're going to still see the same amount of clients that you have, then then maybe downlines is not the way to go because of the amount that it's going to take.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
just understand that.
And making sure that your business, sorry to cut you off,
No,
but
you're good.
making sure that your business is really making sure that your business is in a place in which it can handle going down. I mean, I know that sounds obvious, but I think you might have to look into that more often. You're going to be spending more.
Yes.
You're not just not bringing in as much income. You're also going to be spending more because you're adding accounts to programs that you have. You're adding, you're just, it's just,
Not
you're
only are you
spending money.
taking- yeah, you're
Yes,
not
you're
taking-
paying
yes.
someone else, all that sorts of stuff. So you can't just focus on, can my business handle not making as much income, not making as much income, and also spending a lot more.
I think too, and this is not on the same, this is kind of a tangent off that topic. Something I watched a shark episode,
Shark Tank.
And one of it was like the coolest idea I thought I've ever seen. It was a pizza box that the lid comes off and you tear it into plates. It actually be created plates. Same. I was like, this is going to get eaten up immediately. This is
Right.
the coolest thing. And I think it was Mr. Wonderful, Kevin Lear.
O'Leary.
Yes.
Yeah.
He said, he was immediately like, I'm out. And they're just like, why? And he goes, tell me how this sells more pizza. If I'm going to invest money into it and I cannot draw a line to more revenue, more money in my like, yeah, that's cool. Tell me how that sells more pizza. I've never seen anybody who will buy pizza based in the box. Tell me, like, it's cool. How does it? I think you need to be
Yeah.
asking yourself the same thing always. How does that bring in more revenue to me? And if you can't draw a line to it, or if if it takes more than 15 seconds to explain, then it's not. That's
Right.
not worth the investment.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The last thing I wanted to get into, one more thing when it comes to the downline stuff, don't ask your downline to do administrative tasks. That's going
Yeah.
to create animosity. If you're asking them, again, same thing. If it's not going to be something that brings in more apps, more revenue to them and to you, it is not a task for a downline.
Mm-hmm.
So just keeping that in mind too, making sure, again, when you're looking at hiring an admin or hiring a downline, that you have good expectations on what those responsibilities look like and the most efficient use of their time.
Yes.
The last thing we're going to talk about, the last bone or the last pillar of this, is who owns the business. Again, super easy to say, I'm the agent, I own the business, I'm the manager, I'm the owner. Not necessarily. Again, funny thing about insurance carriers, they don't care about anything else
Right.
than what is on that
What's
contract.
on paper? Yeah.
So there's two ways that if you are going to go the downline route, if you're going to go the downline route, you have the option to go between a sub-agent or an LOA. One is not better than the other. With any of this, downline versus admin,
Right.
one is not better than the other, but they accomplish very different things, and
Right.
there's pros and cons to each. Let's start with a sub-agent. If you are a sub-agent, or you're hiring a sub-agent, when that agent writes the business, that agent owns the business. What that means is if that agent ever leaves you, all of those clients go with them. Now, you will still receive override when you're a sub-agent. The way that the commissions work is that you get a cut of every commission written, but it's usually like 1 to 2% of the premium of that.
Sure.
Again, law of numbers. If you're going to bring on downline, you hope they write a lot of business.
Mhm.
You spend your time on other making money activities. You're just kind of getting a cut per app, right? Not a big one, but still a cut per app. But that means that the commissions are paid directly by the carrier, and the commissions are owned, and the agent of record is owned by that sub-agent.
Mm-hmm.
So it means that it's easy to administrate because you don't have to deal with like writing checks. You don't have to deal with the tracking. You don't have to deal with the paying people.
Mm-hmm.
So administrative, a lot of the burden is put back on the carrier, but those agents are going to be less sticky because if
It's
they
true.
leave you, there's no financial
Right.
repercussions because they get to take their book of business
Right.
and they get to take their commissions with them.
Mm-hmm.
So less sticky, but less administrative
Yeah.
burden.
And it also could be it's less sticky, but also if you're in a particular situation, there's less commitment. It's like if
Yeah.
you're in like wanting to enter a partnership rather than does that
Yes.
make sense?
Yeah.
So there are situations in which them not being as sticky makes a lot of sense.
I'm here. It's like a lot of people argue against marriage. Like, I'm here because I want to be here. The minute that like the government's telling me I have to stay with you by a marriage certificate, then I'm out. Like, that's just me. No,
Sure.
okay. I'm just kidding.
Sure,
But like,
sure.
but it's kind of the same thing. Like, I want to be in this relationship when it's mutually beneficial. If I feel trapped by you, girl, I'm out.
Yeah.
Truly. So that's, again, a significant thing. Sub-agents. A lot of people make the mistake of saying, okay, a sub-agent is like a brokerage. Like, they can have contracts elsewhere. License-only agents are captive. That's not necessarily true. Captive meaning that they have to work with this agency. They're not allowed to go outside the agency. That's not necessarily true. Either one will work for either situations. But again, it's all about the expectations.
Right.
Everything's with the expectations.
Right.
LOA stands for licensed only agent. When a licensed only agent means is exactly that. License only agent means that the carrier recognizes them as an authority to talk about the product and nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
They do not own the business. They do not receive the commissions. They do not have agent. They are agent of record, but so is the upline.
Yeah.
That policy remains and is owned and is serviced by the upline
Yeah.
of that LOA. License only agent meaning you don't own it. You just have the authority to speak and write the policy.
Yeah.
That's how carriers view that. So Upline owns the business, not the LOA, and all commissions are paid to the upline, who will then be expected to, based on whatever agreements you have with that agent, to pay them outside of what the carrier. So the agency is responsible for the compensation. Positive, again, just the opposite of a subagent. The business is stickier. There's more of a reason for that person to stay. There can be, doesn't have to be, can be financial repercussions for somebody leaving. However, it is an administrative burden for a lot of reasons. One, the accounting, the paying of commissions. You're dealing with somebody's money. You are stopping somebody from getting paid. That obviously can create some issues, just like with any employer. When finance is involved, things get a little more challenging, more difficult.
Right.
But it also has a burden of you and making sure that you have tight contracts with your employees.
Mm-hmm.
What are your non-compete clauses? What are your payment agreements? What about if they write a ton of bad business and chargebacks?
Right.
At the end of the day, if an LOA agent writes a bunch of bad business and gets a charge of chargebacks, that doesn't affect the LOA at all. That
Right,
affects
that's on you.
the upline.
Yeah.
So though you get more control, you also have a lot more liability.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. Control versus liability. That's what you need to ask yourself when you're hiring an LOA or a subagent.
Yeah.
One is not better than the other. It just depends on what your goals are and what your method of growth looks like.
I have a question.
And here.
Is it common or is it recommended in some situations for an agent to start out as an LOA, then move to
Oh,
sub-agent?
what a great question. It has everything to do with the personality of that agent.
Yeah.
I do think there is some studies and some science to show that when an agent starts off, we'll say as a captive agent, as an LOA agent, as somebody who is basically being fed and what it comes down to is accountability.
Yeah.
And you can get that level of accountability without being a captive agent. You can get that
Sure.
level of accountability by being independent.
Yeah.
But you have to actively put yourself at that. No one's gonna, if you're an independent agent, you don't have a boss, no one's gonna call you and say, hey, what's going on? We're not seeing the production. You need
Right.
to get this done. I saw a really interesting saying the other day that people who are self-employed, aka like a sub-agent, somebody who is not a captive and independent, an independent agent, that people who are self-employed are willing to work 80 hours for themselves versus 40 hours for somebody else. And
Yeah.
Truly, I really think it's the reason why only 8% of people who enter this industry succeed past a year.
Right.
Because it's just because of a lack of accountability and a lack of access to good content, good knowledge to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So if you are somebody that's like, I'm going to make this work no matter what, you may not need to, you may be able to start being independent, start being a sub-agent, start on your own. But I know a lot of people need somebody to show them the ropes, have a lot more mentorship, and you have to make sure that that mentorship gets something out of it.
Yeah.
And oftentimes that's dollars from being their downline.
Right. Absolutely.
Great question. It just depends on the person.
Yeah.
That's basically, guys, what I have for you today. The one thing I will say with all of this, I'm going to put these up here. The one thing I will say with all this that we haven't hit is that none of this works if you don't, one, have a growth mindset, and two, build a brand worth talking about. Sadie, if you're the insurance agent and it's like, Sadie is my insurance, let me paint the picture. Sadie, you're my insurance agent. And every meeting that I have with you, you're using the tones like, I'm your person, don't talk to anybody else. If a person calls you, ignore it. I'm your person. I am the best. No one can help you. I'm your agent.
Yeah.
Which is a really great retention tool for that client, right? Sadie, you hire an administrative person that your admin calls me, I'm pissed. Who does Sadie think she is? She's not talking to me. Sadie told me I only talk to you.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
I say to you, have a downline, you're trying to get out of that coaching role. Hey, I can't meet with you, but my person can. No, my expectations is I work with you.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in growth, you need to start taking your branding away from, I'm Olivia, I'm the best there ever was, you work with me, to here's my agency. This is what my agency can do for you. Here's why you need to talk to my administrative team. Here's why you need to talk to my agents. Here's what they can do for you. So
Yeah,
making
for
sure,
sure.
change up your branding, change up your word. Because if you can't pass along that trust that your clients have in you into your people, then you will not have growth, because
Right.
your most limited resource is your time.
Yeah.
And you can't make more of it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
just keep that in mind. Christian Brendel, who I am a #1 fan of. I love Christian. He, you guys might know from 7-figure Medicare income, but he does the 7-figure Medicare Summit. He just posted a video on YouTube like a week ago or something along talking about this exact thing about how he just changed his agency name to the Christian Brindle Agency to All Things Senior Insurance. So I'm going to butcher the name, but he just
Sure.
changed the name of his agency because it was exactly that. People called in, they were not willing to talk to anybody else but me.
Right.
And that
Yeah.
really limits your growth.
Yeah.
So when you have this growth mindset, it's going to get uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Giving up control is really uncomfortable. Allowing others to make mistakes is really uncomfortable. But think of the long-term gain of doing that.
Yeah.
The other takeaway is that begin with the end in mind. If you are new and starting out your agency, it is never too early to talk about, should I be a corporation? It's never too early to talk about, do I want to go admin? Do I want to go? It's never too early. Structure. This is the bones of your agency. Build them now to where you're not limiting your growth in 5 years, in 2 years in a lot of cases.
Absolutely.
Last but not least, it's never too late to make changes. If you're watching this and you're just like, I am in year 10 of my agency, I've done none of these things, I have some rebuilding to do. Again, the best time to plant a tree is 200 years ago. The second best time is today.
Yeah.
Like, start the conversation. Let's have, and get us involved because it can get really complicated if you don't have the right partners assisting you with these transitions.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things where it's like if you push off, there's an aspect if it's tied to your social security, obviously that could be bad. But then we see with especially like our AP section is people go and they're like, cool, I've done it. I've ran the race.
I've done it.
I'm ready to retire. I want to
Yes.
send this off. And then they realize that they have all of this
nothing.
contracting, all the stuff we talked about today it has to completely change before they can even sell their business
Yes.
in order for them to profit the way that they want to.
Yes.
So yeah, today is better than whenever you think you're about done and then
know.
it's like, oh,
We
actually
do
you have a whole lot.
Like, if you're thinking about retiring, give us 5 years. Honestly, 2 things, and this isn't included today, but if you're thinking about retiring, we can get to the question slide, that's fine. If you're thinking about retiring, give us 5 years. 2 things. 1, we'll set you up so that you actually legally can retire and still receive an income. And 2, we'll help you build your business in a way that makes it much more valuable. Because I would rather sell. Do you want to sell it when you have, when it's worth $250,000, or do you want to sell it when it's worth well over $500,000? Give us
Right.
5 years, we can build up that value for you.
Yeah.
So that's all we're saying. Guys, any questions, comments, concerns, threats, or promises, let us know. That is our website. That is our phone number. We are here again. Of course, you can also text Sadie. I know that's on the other portion of it, but please let us know. We, again, because of this new way that we're doing these lives, we will not be reaching out to you because we don't know if you're watching this or not. So if you really do, like, hey, don't delay this. The sooner the better. Call us right now. We are here to make sure that you have the longevity of your agency and the growth pattern of your agency is maximized.
And even if you're just curious, you don't think that there's anything wrong, but you just want a second opinion on
Yeah.
is this setup that's the most efficient? Like it's been working for me, but is this setup the most efficient for today? And then also like what I want for the future. If you just want a second opinion, give our team a call. They're happy to look through everything and make suggestions or say, great job.
Yeah. When it comes to, again, like the LLC versus the individual versus the S Corp, just a reminder, carriers all have their own individual agreements. And so no carriers will treat that the same.
Yeah.
No carriers will look at, no 2 carriers will look at a succession planning. We'll look at a purchasing or an acquisition. We'll look at retirement the same. It is really important to have somebody who is well-versed in all of that and can give you input on what can you do today. If tomorrow, hey, I want to buy somebody's business. There's an agent down the street. I know a lot of my clients, I've kind of been maybe not stealing from them, but taking their clients the last few years.
Yeah.
They're looking to retire. I want to, I want fast growth. You want to make sure you're set up to do that and to handle that.
Our last webinar that we did, I had Kayla on from the transition team, and we talked a lot about that. So if you want more information, of course, you can always call us, but they're also go back to our lives on this page and you'll see. And that was a really, really awesome. These 2 webinars are good to go hand in hand and good to watch back to back. So check that out if you want more information. And then obviously you can go to our website. We have live chat on there. You can call our phone numbers. But yeah, guys, we're happy to chit chat with you.
Appreciate you all as always. Again, we'll be doing more of these. So if you haven't liked, subscribed, hit that bell.
Hit that bell, hit that
bell.
like button.
Hit
But
that like
seriously,
button. But please subscribe to our content. We'll make sure we put out content, at least a video every week, as well as we'll continuing to do lives here where you can still interact with us, ask questions live, and just let us know what you feel, how you feel about the content.
absolutely.
Awesome.